Good morning. My name is Sylvia Howe. I'm a member of this congregation and a retired Unitarian Universalist minister and a grateful volunteer. My pronouns are she, her. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus. We begin this service by acknowledging that we are on Indigenous land. We gather at the ancestral lands of the Adena, the Hopewell, Wyandot, Miami, Seneca, Erie, and Cayuga. We cultivate this awareness that our symbolic acknowledgements be accompanied by concrete acts of solidarity, healing, and reparation. We are grateful to be here. While spring officially started on March 20th, we would like to take this opportunity today as we talk about change to honor the changing of the seasons and the turning of the star wheel. Please rise in body and spirit to sing number 73, Chant for the Seasons, the spring verse.
Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Sharp the smell of loam, bursting in our eyes, the turrets of the tulip. Winter rains turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us. Greening is the grass, soft upon our brows, the sunlight warm caresses. Winter rains have turned the star wheel, springtime is upon us.
Good morning. I'm Shelley Casto, and I'm happy to serve on this congregation as a member of the Board of Trustees. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to First UU. Whether you are joining us online or in person, and whether you are a new face or a familiar one, we are glad you are here. If this is your first visit, please stop by the welcome table out in the gallery for your first-time visitor gift. Join us for the coffee hour after the service in Beach Hall. And if you're interested in volunteering for the coffee team, please let Andy Macharski know, right there, over there. Don't forget that you can find a digital order of the service, the Joys and Sorrows form, and the donation page by scanning the QR code on the screen right up there. Next, we have a message from Chaz and Susan Williams.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Chaz Williams, and this is my wife, Susan.
We've been coming to First UU for 48 years because he wanted to sing in the choir.
And then you found your passion in religious education.
I did. And remember when they recruited us because we were the young adults to be on the board?
Yeah, I do remember that, and that's when we signed the membership book and we started pledging.
Oh, we're still pledging. And this year we really stretched our retirement income to raise our pledge.
And you want to remind me why we agreed to do that?
Well, it was our vision statement to heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love. Our whole world is recovering from a pandemic. It's a trauma we share with humanity. And as a congregation, we have had our own specific struggles. Right now, our vision has never seemed quite so personal to me. You and I, we've been involved. Our congregation's challenges haven't happened without our participation. If First UU is really capable of transforming itself, then old-timers like us need to step up to the challenge. People are coming to see us again, visiting, asking if they belong here. Like us, they have come to recover, to heal, to grow and change, to be transformed. Giving is just the first step. So what about you, sweetie?
Well, I keep coming and pledging for all those reasons, Susan, and because I want to see how all of this turns out. I am a praying kind of guy, but I don't expect God to solve our problems for us. I pray for the strength and the wisdom to be with each other in a loving community while we work on our problems together. That's my prayer. And I'm staying around and pledging for all of that. And for you out there and watching at home, please pledge today by visiting the table outside of the service or by pledging online. Please give the staff and our lay leaders who put together our budget the time they need to plan our budget by pledging today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaz and Sue. Now is the time to submit your joys and sorrows using the QR code, which will go up there sometime, that is available on the screen throughout the service, or the paper form in the back. You can write down any joys or sorrows you have for this morning. Anything we receive before the sermon will be shared later during the caring meditation. We would now like to invite any children who want to help bring in the light to meet Gus back there out in the gallery. Everyone else, let us center ourselves as we listen to this morning's prelude.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Kelly McNeil, and I serve this congregation as your minister of congregational life. My pronouns are she, her. It is now time for our children to bring in the light. Our chalice lighting words this morning are entitled Why We're Here by Eric Walker Wilkstrom. Here today in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way.
Thank you, Roshad, for your help lighting our chalice today. Good morning. My name is Diane Caronega, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of our eco-justice team and coordinator for the Connecting Community Corridor for People, Pollinators, and the Planet, or CCC for PPP, which is our Share the Plate recipient for April this month. Please contact our Director of Religious Exploration, Amber Scott, to learn more about our congregation's family programs. And today's story is called Dear Wild Child, written by Wallace J. Nichols and Wallace Grace Nichols, and illustrated by Drew Beckmeyer. We built your house around you when you were still growing inside your mother, in the shade of ancient redwood trees, by a creek not far from the ocean. We built your house stout and soulful to protect and raise you to be strong and healthy. Hardwood and stone, heavy truss and steel bolt, knob and switch. We never locked it. We didn't have to. It never really belonged to us. We filled it with books, guitars, a piano, seashells, feathers, and animals, and memories. You learning to walk, the wide, worn Douglas fir floorboards holding you up. Loving voices singing sweet lullabies, the wind singing through the canyon, the trees, and the chimney. The fireplace crackling and warming us as we slept, collecting eggs and cooking pancakes at dawn. You growing taller and stronger, like a little sapling. In our canyon, you discovered salamanders, swimming holes, fairy houses, buckets full of plums, heart-shaped rocks, crawdads, bright stars, and owl calls. Your home grew brighter and wilder with people, great parties, friends' weddings, holiday gatherings, and sleepovers. Hundreds of visitors, beautiful music, delicious dinners, and rich, deep conversations. I had hoped this house would be yours someday. Your home in the redwoods by a creek, not far from the ocean, was as old as you were. It stood strong through droughts, floods, and earthquakes. You were there for it all. Last night, the wildest, most beautiful lightning storm I have ever seen blew across the ocean and through our canyon. The lightning ignited a wildfire. The unstoppable flames roared over the ridges and climbed the tall trees. The fire took back your house. I wish I could have protected it, but I couldn't, and I didn't. All that remains standing is the ledgestone chimney that still sings with the wind through the trees. Your house served its original purpose. You are healthy and strong because of your home. It grew you. You are made of hardwood and stone, bright stars, and the wind's song. You are made of plums, Mill Creek water, and Pacific salmon. You are made of sea salt, piano keys, and mountain lion screams. Your house might be gone, but you will carry your home with you wherever you go. You are my wild child. Love, Dad. The end. So, this book is based on a true story. Author Wallace J. Nichols writes, "We built our home by hand 20 years ago among the redwoods and raised our 2 daughters here. In August 2020, our house burned to the ground. A stunningly beautiful electric storm, unlike anything we'd ever seen, blew in from the Pacific Ocean. 11,000 lightning bolts touched down across California, starting over 600 wildfires. It burned across the ridges, through the oldest state park, home to 500-year-old redwoods, and down the canyons of the Santa Cruz Mountains where we lived. There was only enough time to throw a few things in a duffel bag, grab our dog, George, jump into the Jeep, and head south. The day before, our oldest daughter, Wallace Grace, had left home for college. I called her the next morning to tell her that the only home she'd ever known had burned to the ground. She began to cry, and I wrote her this letter. The climate is changing. Weather is becoming less predictable and more extreme. We will lose what we love, and to fix what's broken, we will all need to become resilient and more empathetic, collaborative, and creative. The redwood forests may be our best teachers." I now invite the congregation to form a sheltering arc of love as we sing our young people back to their families and out to the class.
Our reading this morning is Pushing Forward by Elandria Williams. If we believe in the promise of our faith, we must continue pushing forward, even if the reality makes us want to give up. There is no one-size-fits-all solution or model, but there are many paths forward based on context, relationships, and place. Ideology sparks movements, but relationships are what change organizations and sustain movements. It takes one relationship at a time. We must place value on the relationships and the need to not leave folks behind in our quest for transformation. I live in a small city, and living in that small city helps me understand what community means. Community doesn't only include the people who agree with you or those with whom you want to be friends. Our Unitarian Universalist faith is similar in the sense that we are a small religious community of people who are not bound by creed, but instead are bound by principles, values, and a covenant with a need for intellectual rigor, combined with spiritual depth or humanist love. Everything comes back to our congregations and covenanted communities. This is where the faith starts and ends. We must embody the changes we wish to see and not just say that we believe in the changes. We must actually live the changes with every fabric of our being. If we believe in the promise of our faith, we must continue pushing forward.
Thank you, choir. That was special. In April, our church is sharing our offering plate with the Connecting Community Corridor for people, pollinators, and the planet. This corridor is made of yards and container gardens of 40 families in Linden, as well as many partner organizations who have agreed to host native plants and preserve habitats for birds, insects, and other creatures. The offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, Nathan. Back in 2013, I found myself having to make a choice. Do I stick with what is comfortable, familiar, and still a very good option, or do I take the road less traveled and take a risk? I was in my final year at OSU, graduation on the horizon, and I had to figure out what I was going to do next. I knew I wanted to go into social work, but I wanted to be a Christian social worker who helped people through their religious trauma, particularly around the intersection of sexual assault and conservative Christian beliefs. I knew from experience how damaged and broken someone can feel at that intersection, and I wanted to use that experience for good. Of course, I applied for the master's program at OSU because I loved being a student there, and I could not imagine going anywhere else. But something was missing. So I decided to also apply elsewhere, looking for Christian graduate schools that had social work programs, but were also liberal in their beliefs. I think it's safe to say that I wasn't able to find many options. Long story short, I found a program that would have me taking classes for 2 years in seminary and 2 years in a Master's of Social Work program, leaving that program with degrees in both divinity and social work, which was amazing. But the problem was the program was in Virginia. So I had the safe, comfortable, reliable option of staying where I was or making the biggest change of my life, moving out of state, away from my entire support system and into the unknown, the road less traveled, if you will. I still can't explain why, because the decision to leave was so unlike me, but I felt called to go, to take this path and make this change. I knew that I could always come back, that I wasn't making a decision that was permanent, and that brought me some comfort. But weeks before I moved, I found myself in the back of my church on retreat, sobbing and crying out, "Do I have to?" I was terrified. And worse than anything, I didn't get an answer. I didn't feel better about this decision. As my parents drove off to the airport, leaving me alone in my new apartment, I was still terrified. What had I just gotten myself into? And did I make the right decision in making this massive change in my life? When Amber showed me the time for all ages for this morning, I saw myself in that story. Still, to this day, I find that I have resistance to change. Family traditions are so important to me, and my gut reaction when someone suggests doing something slightly different is a hard no. I think part of that is because I was in Virginia for 6 years and therefore missed a lot. Family traditions like singing happy birthday all together at different speeds and pitches. Major health events like my dad almost dying from a heart attack a month before I was supposed to get married. My parents moving out of my childhood home and not getting a chance to say goodbye. Deciding what path to take and being open to any number of changes that those paths can lead to can be scary. But I also know that resistance to change isn't something that is unique to me. It's everywhere, all the time. So I started asking my favorite question, why? And let me tell you, while researching for this sermon, there were a lot of opinions out there as to why we as human beings are resistant to change. According to the National Health Service, or NHS, resistance to change is actually very normal. Some reasons for it stem from how our brains are hardwired, some from our psychological needs, some stem from our sociological needs, and some reasons are just that we might not like the practical effect a change might have on us. You might be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The theory is that our needs are building blocks. Starting at the bottom of the pyramid, we need to address and satisfy the needs at the bottom before we can work on meeting the needs a step higher. For example, if someone doesn't have food, water, shelter, basic survival needs, we need to address those before we can work towards meeting the more growth-based needs of self-esteem and self-actualization. Sometimes resistance to change could be because someone is stubborn or is using their resistance as manipulation. I'm not talking about that kind of resistance to change. Instead, I'm talking about the fundamental fight or flight reaction that sometimes involuntarily rises up within us when confronted with change. That's where Maslow can help us better understand and practice lessening that immediate reaction. According to the NHS, one of the fundamental questions that needs to be answered in some way when we're presented with change indicates a foundational need for safety. What does this mean for me? One of the most common questions that rises up in a congregation that has experienced major membership growth, leading to the hiring of more staff, is what does this mean for me? Big or small, congregations thrive because of volunteers. Volunteers who show up week after week, making sure that there are fresh flowers on the chancel, that there's a smiling face greeting people at the door, that the classrooms have teachers, mailings go out on time, that we have coffee, and so much more. So when a congregation starts utilizing paid staff to tackle various tasks, it can send the unintended message that someone's volunteer efforts that they've done for years isn't needed anymore. When in actuality, the increase in membership means an increase in need for volunteers. But nobody wants to feel like they aren't needed, especially not in their church community. When change is handled well, when it's seen as and handled as an opportunity rather than a roadblock, communication flows freely and the process is done together. The natural worry of what does this mean for me is discussed, and we find ways to move forward, still meeting each other's needs, just maybe in a different way. Change goes from being a do we have to more of a we get to. The NHS again identifies another safety and security need when dealing with change. Do I have a choice? Just as anxiety around change is human nature, wanting to be able to decide for ourselves and not feel that something is being decided for us without our input is human nature. It's not always possible for that to happen, but it still is very disheartening to feel like things are being done to you rather than with you. In Robert Frost's poem, he talks about deciding which path to take. But what happens when the decision is taken out of our hands and we have to go with what someone else has decided? The sense that we don't have control, whether true or not, can cause us to dig in our heels and reject change, not necessarily because we're stubborn, but because a natural reaction to feeling out of control is to grasp at whatever you can to feel control again. And I know that control sometimes has a negative connotation. It's too often used as a weapon. The lack of control I'm talking about is like feeling like you've been placed on one of those moving walkways at the airport and you have no power to turn it off or get off. You see the world passing you by and you feel helpless. This, coupled with the inevitable questions of, is this going to fail? And am I good enough? It's amazing that we as human beings are ever open to change. You might have heard the term liminal times used a lot this church year. As we go through our own transition, our own change as a community, we're being encouraged to live into the liminal time in which we find ourselves. Author and theologian Richard Rohr defines liminal time as when you have left or are about to leave the tried and true, but have not yet been able to replace it with anything else. At First UU, we've been living in this liminal time for a while, knowing that we're leaving one stage and moving into another without that other stage being fully established yet. I've heard from some of our community who are aching to get back to the way things have always been, to restore a sense of normalcy. I hear from others who want to use this time as an opportunity to try something new, figure out where the trajectory of church community is heading, and see if we can be early adopters of new models of ministry. I think that one of the lessons that I learned about in business school can help us understand why people react differently to the idea of change. There are those early adopters who camp outside of an Apple store so they can be one of the first to get the new iPhone, all the way along the spectrum to those who would rather keep their trusted flip phone and wait a few years to see if this new thing actually works, while most people fall somewhere in the middle. When it comes to change, there are those that embrace uncertainty, excited to try and fail and try again. Still others are more hesitant, wondering why the way things have been done in the past can't just continue. In most communities, like in business, you have people at either extremes, with most people falling somewhere in the middle. The key is understanding that we aren't all in the same place, And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It provides some balance in conversations, so long as everyone involved in the conversation is open to really listening to the various perspectives and lived experiences. For example, I find myself somewhere in the middle. As a type A person, I desire and thrive in the world of certainty and order. But I also find myself getting excited about new possibilities. It just might take me some time to get there. Updating my phone right away after a new update is released makes me nervous, and I tend to wait a few weeks until they work all the bugs out. When plans change on me with little to no warning, it takes me some time to be able to readjust my thinking before I can begin to get comfortable or not with this change. So what I've learned that I need to do is surround myself with those who view and handle change a little differently. Those ready to jump on something right away, and those who are more hesitant. I feel as though I get a more rounded perspective that way, and I find comfort in that. For individuals and communities alike, the way we handle change, especially in times of high stress, is often judged as a character trait, often a character flaw, rather than looked at for the complexity that it is. A community of people who are all responding to change from different levels of needs. Often times of high stress and change put us lower on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, back at feeling like our need for safety and security aren't being met. And it's good for us to know that because it helps us make sense of our own resistance and the resistance of others. As we come to understand ourselves and others better, we may find it easier to express our needs in healthy ways that continue to push us forward. But what I've come to realize is that too often we use concepts like liminal times more like the way Michael Scott in the show The Office declares bankruptcy. When Michael is asked about his money troubles, he's informed of the concept of bankruptcy. He's told, all you have to do is declare bankruptcy and all of your problems will go away. So Michael then goes into the main office area and screams out, I declare bankruptcy. His employees have to tell him that's not how it works. You can't just declare something and make it true. Similarly, we can't hide behind terms like liminal times and expect that everyone is on that moving walkway with us willingly. We have to do the work that supports change, leaving space for discussing the needs that are hardwired in our brains, the psychological, social, physical, and neurological needs that cause us to be resistant. It's easy for me to put my head down and plow through during the week, giving myself space and grace to experience the emotions that arise when confronted with change. But I sometimes forget that when I then present an idea, either on Sunday morning or when I'm meeting with a group or individual, it may be the first time many people are hearing it. In my head, I think about the time, energy, and patience that I've had to put into this idea and wrapping my brain around making a change, and I forget that not everyone has had that opportunity, feeling frustrated rather than compassionate towards that struggle. I'm wondering how many of us often feel the same way, whether in the transition we're experiencing here at church or maybe in your work or home life. Maybe you spent months on a project and a plan on how to do something differently, and when you present it to your boss, instead of a good job and let's make that happen, you're met with resistance. Or when you spend all day reorganizing the garage and your partner comes home and the first thing they say is they liked it better the other way. Or maybe you're that partner, and when you get home and see the changes, you feel underappreciated and disrespected because you weren't asked for your opinion or input. Whatever the change may be, big or small, life-changing or not, it's natural and normal to feel some resistance. I'm wondering what would be different if we all collectively agreed that when we're presented with a change, we take a pause before reacting, to do self-reflection and figure out what needs are rising up that we feel like aren't being met. Am I afraid that I'm not necessary anymore? Am I worried that this is going to fail or that I don't know what to expect? Is the person asking me to make a decision now, or do I have time to think? Do I have a choice? Sometimes change doesn't work out. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we mess up. Earlier, I said that when change is handled well, communication flows freely and the process is done together. We find ways to move forward, still meeting each other's needs, just in a different way. There will always be resistance to change, and you can't meet the needs of everyone all the time, but process matters. As Alandria Williams said in our reading, ideology sparks movements, but relationships are what change organizations and sustain movements. It takes one relationship at a time. We must place value on the relationships and the need to not leave folks behind in our quest for transformation. Understanding resistance to change takes all of us. It takes those of us in church leadership doing a better job communicating with all of you, giving you more opportunities to feel heard, valued, and appreciated, providing answers when we can, and sitting together in the inevitable uncertainty when an answer isn't clear. It takes committed individual work to examine why resistance is rising up within us, and whether it's because we have a need that isn't being met, or perhaps because we are uncomfortable with uncertainty. And most importantly, it takes patience, humility, and grace. Patience with each other as we do this transformational work. Humility when we fall short of expectations or hopes and desires. And grace to come back together in love to keep trying and pushing forward. I wish I could tell you that this is easy, uncomplicated, and clean, but it's not. However, what lies before us through the messy swamp land of trying and failing and trying again is an opportunity to more fully and deeply live into who we want to be. Because despite the natural resistance that we may feel towards change, change is inevitable. Being stagnant means that we probably aren't listening to the needs around us. In Unitarian Universalism, we believe that truth comes from many sources and that we are called to freely and responsibly search for truth and meaning. As Alandria said, there is no one-size-fits-all solution or model, but there are many paths forward based on context, relationships, and place. If we believe in the promise of our faith, we must continue pushing forward. And how we do that matters. Amen. Blessed be.
Let us pause for a moment to consider the things of the world. The killings, the bombings, the fighting bring deep pain and grief to our heart. We pray that real solutions can be found to end this mindless waste of innocent lives. Blue skies, soft winds, springtime blossoms, and chirping birds bring happiness and joy to our lives. We give thanks for the glory of the natural world. Noisy children, helpful adolescents, hard-working adults, and wise elders remind us that we belong to a beloved community of differing ages and experiences. Let us cherish our variety. Listen to the wisdom of poet Mary Oliver as she reminds us of what it takes to live in this world. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you about mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Amen. I welcome Pat Snyder, our pastoral listener this morning, to read the caring cards and announcements you've submitted this past week and this morning. And as a reminder, any caring card submitted after 4 p.m. on Saturday will be read the following Sunday. This morning we have 3 announcements that were submitted during the week. Congratulations to Kathleen and Joe F., who will celebrate their wedding anniversary on May 1st. And I believe it's their 51st. Congratulations to Diane K. Stand up, stand up. This is an honor. She received 2 awards from the Franklin County Master Gardeners. She received the Outstanding Project of the Year Award for her work spearheading and coordinating events for connecting community corridor for people, pollinators, and the planet. And the second award that she received is for being chosen as the Master Gardener of the Year.
I just wanted to say I might be the front person for it, but it really has only happened because of all the partnerships and the wonderful people and volunteers involved. So thank you to all of you.
We send caring and healing thoughts to Sue Ann F., who will be having knee replacement on May 4th. She doesn't look happy. And happy birthday to Danaya, who's 15 today. Stand up, Danaya. We're gonna sing? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Kelly, you got the different tones, different start times, different everything. Please visit the caring table in Beach Hall after the service today and every day a week to say hello to our volunteers and to sign the caring cards that will be sent to people within our community. And now for the joys and sorrows you lifted up this morning.
Okay, just one from Heidi B., along with Cooper and Zaya. An announcement that Grandma Dixon, and for Cooper and Zaya, great Grandma Dixon passed away last week. So we send our sympathy to all of them. Thank you.
May we hold these joys and sorrows and all those yet unspoken gently in our hearts.
Our closing hymn this morning is number 1074 in our teal hymnal, Turn the World Around. Harry Belafonte, one of the writers of this hymn, passed away on Tuesday at the age of 96. Harry was one of few performers to receive an EGOT, receiving an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and a Tony. Harry was deeply involved in the civil rights movement and various humanitarian efforts. To honor his legacy, please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing our closing hymn, Turn the World Around.
See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Whoa! So is life a batiwa. So is life. Whoa! So is life a batiwa. So is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Whoa! So is life a batiwa. So is life. Whoa! So is life a batiwa. So is life.
Please join hands as you are comfortable and join me in speaking our vision statement as we extinguish our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love.
I'm just kidding. I know. I'm the same way.